On August 8, 2022, the Federal Bureau of Investigation executed a search warrant on Mar-a-Lago, a resort in Palm Beach, Florida, and current residence of Donald Trump. The former president is accused of removing and concealing classified documents. A search of this magnitude was unprecedented, prompting the Republicans' central talking point. If this is unprecedented, they argued, then it must be corrupt. Right-wing politicians and right-wing media opted for misdirection instead of engagement, as usual, and desperately tried to nudge the spotlight away from Trump's alleged crimes and onto the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Trump bluffed, demanding the public release of the search warrant in hopes that the Department of Justice would deny the request, thereby strengthening his facile argument that this was an illegal raid and not a search. By pretending that the FBI and DOJ were hiding the true nature of the search, Trump could exonerate himself, not in a court of law but in the court of public opinion. Trump's request for more information revealed to the public was not made in good faith because he already had a copy of the warrant, and his lawyers knew there was nothing in the warrant that would back up his claims. The DOJ is often careful about releasing too much information for fear of scuttling an investigation, and with this knowledge, Trump's people thought the DOJ might hold back, at least for a while. However, the DOJ called Trump's bluff and said that they would release it, unless Trump's lawyers suddenly object before a deadline. Trump could not object to something that he himself demanded, or else he would show his hand. In retaliation to losing the first round, mere minutes before the deadline, someone sent the unredacted warrant to right-wing internet tabloid Breitbart, complete with the names of people who signed off on the warrant, putting them in danger. At least one individual went into hiding due to death threats from violent extremists, which was almost certainly the intention behind the release of the unredacted warrant in the first place. Since the only people with access to the warrant are the DOJ, FBI, and Trump, and the DOJ and FBI do not benefit from doxing government agents and judges, it's not hard to narrow down where the leak came from. In any case, the warrant confirmed that Trump was, and still is, under investigation for a number of crimes, including obstruction of justice and violating the Espionage Act. The warrant with this information was coming anyway, and leaking the unredacted version at least gave the Trump camp the appearance of power, the appearance of still being dangerous.
The FBI and the Justice Department have become vicious monsters, controlled by radical left scoundrels, lawyers, and the media who tell them what to do, you people right there, and when to do it.
Days later, the government released the redacted affidavit, revealing to the public something else Trump already knew, that when asked to turn over classified documents earlier this year, he turned over some, claimed that was everything, but covertly kept much more. This prompted further investigation and the resulting search warrant in August. Trump's lawyers may still believe that these public releases will give them the upper hand because the more that's out there, the more they will be able to pick apart in the media and examine for potential criminal defense. However, it is becoming increasingly difficult to claim that Trump is winning his war against the DOJ and FBI. As each day passes, defending Trump becomes more challenging for his allies in the Republican Party and right-wing media outlets like Fox News and Newsmax. Republicans are still talking about it, but some of them are talking around it, hedging their bets as the situation becomes more uncertain. To counter these incredibly bad optics, Republicans have placed more and more attention on the FBI instead. The rallying cry, popularized by Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, has been "Defund the FBI." Republicans jumped on this opportunity because it signals support for Trump while not explicitly claiming that he is innocent because it doesn't even reference him directly. It also draws attention away from Trump and the Republican Party more broadly. In other words, defund the FBI is multiple forms of misdirection wrapped up in one easy-to-remember catchphrase. It's an attempt to earn back political capital, as well as, the normal kind.
Let me just read a few quotations here. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, impeach Merrick Garland and defund the corrupt FBI. And at Marjorie Taylor Greene's website, she's selling Defund the FBI t-shirts.
Defund the FBI is a reference to the 2020 activist rallying cry, Defund the Police, a policy proposal that Republicans willfully do not understand and Democrats never actually adopted or put into action. Defund the Police was more popular among people to the left of the Democratic Party, not the party itself. It's October now, and with the midterm elections fast approaching, Republicans are campaigning on investigating the FBI should they take control of the House of Representatives, or the Senate, or both. Navigating these terms and their ideological makeup can be challenging because some politicians benefit from obfuscating the true intentions of these proposals and reducing the rhetoric to local versus federal, or small government versus big government, or other reductive talking points and sound bites. A greater understanding of the political ideological underpinnings is required to make heads or tails of these talking points and to better prepare for what is coming. Allow me to speak directly to those who might believe that the investigation into Donald Trump is merely political maneuvering without any legal merit. Your party is lying to you, and so is your most cherished media. You want to believe that your guy has done nothing wrong because you have attached some of your beliefs and some of your worth to your political party and to a single man. Recognizing the truth would be extremely uncomfortable. Nevertheless, it is the truth and must be confronted. Rather than trying to explain the next part from my political perspective, in which what we consider the state is inherently illegitimate, I will meet you where you are and explain the merits of the charges from the perspective of someone with more faith in our republic, presumably much like yourself. Everyone else can listen up too. Here are the facts, all of which will be cited on the screen. The Presidential Records Act establishes that presidential records belong to the United States, not the President, and that these records must be surrendered in their entirety to the Archivist of the United States at the end of the President's time in office. The Archivist is the Chief Administrator of the National Archives and Records Administration. This administration is a federal agency tasked with preserving and protecting government records and other materials deemed of national importance. This should not be confused with the Library of Congress, which also houses a tremendous amount of records but functions differently and within a different branch of the government. Throughout the Donald Trump administration, there were a number of reports that the president was operating well outside of the norms of the office with regards to classified documents and documents in general. Trump would often rip apart documents, throw them in the garbage, or in some cases even attempt to flush them down the toilet. The office of the staff secretary was sometimes given the covert task of piecing shredded documents back together. Some of these documents were recovered and given to the National Archives, and some were lost forever. Trump also claimed some documents should be considered his personal property, specifically any communication between himself and North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. Make of that what you will. On numerous occasions, Trump reportedly revealed classified information, most notably to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. This put American lives in danger and U.S. intelligence operations in jeopardy. Trump even admitted to this, but stood his ground in his usual posturing of, "I'll do whatever I want." When Trump lost the election in 2020 and made bogus claims about his victory, Trump's allies attempted to weaponize the National Archives and steal the election. Right-wing lawyer John Eastman penned a memo that outlined a 6-step plan that would eventually result in Vice President Mike Pence overturning the election altogether. The National Archives and Records Administration is responsible for receiving and authenticating Electoral College votes. Top officials of the Republican Party in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin sent fake certificates to the National Archives, falsely claiming that their state was won by Trump, not Biden. The officials had no authority to do this. The National Archives intercepted these fake certificates and correctly identified them as forgeries. If someone has no legal authority to make this claim, then the alleged government document is itself fraudulent and therefore a forgery, which is a crime. It's not unlike impersonating a police officer, especially if the impersonation is designed to provide cover for a second crime. Now, the plan was not to simply expect the National Archives to let this fall through the cracks. The plan was to create circumstances in which the Trump administration could claim that there were competing electors and that this was reason enough to discount the results altogether. Obviously, not many people agreed with this interpretation of the law. Fake electors are not competing electors any more than someone committing identity theft is the competing owner of your belongings and social security card, or the competing husband of your wife. The crime itself invalidates its legitimacy. This ludicrous interpretation of the law was rejected outright. None of Trump's plots to overturn the election had a likelihood of accomplishing its primary goal, but it did accomplish a secondary goal: convince a large portion of Republicans and conservative independents that the election was fraudulent and that his bogus claims were legitimate. This was helpful in inciting the events of January 6, 2021, and may prove helpful to Trump should he run for president again in 2024. This acceptance of bogus claims was achieved not through real evidence, as nothing significant has ever been found or proved, but through repetition and simple confirmation bias. The majority of Republican voters now make this claim, as it has become both talking point and holy writ of the party. When Trump left office, he kept a great number of presidential records that were not his to keep. The National Archives cajoled Trump into finally returning some, but when it became clear that many were unaccounted for, the matter escalated. Federal regulations demand that anyone with knowledge of missing or stolen records must alert the Information Security Oversight Office, which oversees the security classification system and related responsibilities. The parent agency of the ISOO is the National Archives and Records Administration. This is entirely within their purview. After several attempts to retrieve the classified documents, a warrant was issued and the documents were collected by the FBI. Again, this is entirely within their purview. Since then, Trump has attempted to claim that he somehow declassified all the documents, a claim that has been fact-checked and debunked by legal experts and government officials. Declassifying top-secret documents cannot be accomplished by whispering, "I hereby declassify these documents," in the bathroom mirror. For obvious reasons, it's more complicated than that, and has more oversight. Trump has also claimed that the previous president did the same thing, but this has also been fact-checked and debunked. It's a claim that removes all the context to make Trump's actions and Barack Obama's actions appear similar. Frankly, even if Obama performed the same illegal action, this whataboutism would not absolve Trump of wrongdoing or criminal charges. Whataboutism does not change the nature of the crime that is being deflected through this rhetorical fallacy. Any claim that this investigation is a witch hunt requires evidence to back up that claim. As of yet, there is no evidence of illegality by the FBI or DOJ in this investigation, but there does seem to be evidence of Trump's crimes. Boxes full of evidence. Trump is also being sued for fraud by the New York State Attorney General, and despite it being a civil matter, it could also result in criminal charges. Trump is also being investigated in Georgia for criminal interference in the 2020 election, investigated by the January 6th Commission for his role in the insurrection, and sued by others for a variety of reasons. There is no vast conspiracy among every Democrat and some Republicans in Congress, the Office of the Attorney General in New York, the state of Georgia, and a number of private citizens. An errant text detailing this conspiracy would probably have been known by now. After all, evidence of the Trump team's actual conspiracies have been uncovered. I'm sorry, but Trump is simply being credibly accused of crimes because he does whatever he wants without any regards to public safety or common decency. It's that simple. You can listen to what I have to say from my left-wing perspective and find comfort in rejecting it. You can reject my perspective, but are you really going to sit there and reject your own perspective on the sanctity of our nation and importance of our institutions because that deeply held perspective is now politically inconvenient? Trump did all this stuff. It happened. Almost none of this is really contested by independent, reliable sources, experts, and researchers. If you are still uncomfortable acknowledging your guy as a traitor and a criminal, stop thinking of him as your guy. Donald Trump is nobody's guy except Donald Trump. He does not care about you. He's a self-obsessed, unrepentant weirdo who promotes conspiracy theories to grab power and to exploit the people of the United States of America. Every single thing about his life paints the picture of an untrustworthy, abusive ne'er-do-well a rich kid who never grew up. He has so consistently thrown you and the rest of the people of our nation under the bus, and the moral thing to do right now is to defend yourself and your nation against him instead of being loyal to him. He's not loyal to you, and he's not actually your guy, and you don't have to be loyal to someone who thinks of you as less than human. As the midterms approach, some Republicans have eased off of the phrase defund the FBI because the goals of the movement are completely different from the goals of defund the police. The goal of the defund the FBI movement is not to reallocate funds from the FBI to solve criminogenic conditions. The goals of this movement are to distract voters from the Donald Trump investigation, cast doubt on the investigation, and politicize the investigation. They do this by claiming that the investigation is already politicized and that what they want to do is depoliticize it. This is just political doublespeak and the old right-wing strategy of accusing your enemy of actions you yourself have committed. Republicans are not planning to actually defund the FBI, and they have no actual moral objections to law enforcement either. Their claims of merely wanting greater oversight is a thinly veiled reference to their voting base about the legitimacy of the Trump investigation. That's all this is. Liberal Democrats have attempted to push back on defund the FBI and related talking points by claiming this is hypocrisy due to Republican objections to defunding the police. This so-called hypocrisy call-out is not going to work. Conservatives don't consider it hypocrisy, they consider it memeing. It is meant to be a wedge issue for voters with a built-in, dishonest rhetorical defense. Oh, now we can't abolish law enforcement, huh? Everyone is a hypocrite if we pretend these talking points are similar or have similar goals. They're not. This is always the true intention about the right wing's talk of small government conservatism. The right wing doesn't actually want to abolish federal law enforcement. They want it to be worse than it is presently. They want to shape the government to have more authority over their specific enemies and less authority to prevent this authoritarianism from happening. For example, they want the FBI to start arresting Antifa, even though the FBI and anyone who follows the anti-fascist movement knows that Antifa is not a singular organization, but small, formal, autonomous groups and informal counter-protesting. As another example, they want to protect Donald Trump from arrest and conviction so he may run for office again, win again, and consolidate Republican power indefinitely and unconstitutionally. In simpler terms, in order to have more authority against their enemies, certain institutions need to have less authority to prevent this from happening. For reference, see the Patriot Act and other post-9/11 shifts in law enforcement and homeland security. Republicans have been referring to the 7th floor of FBI headquarters. For the uninitiated, the 7th floor houses the offices of senior agents and the FBI director. Republicans want to replace any and all FBI agents ostensibly doing their jobs with hand-selected right-wing loyalists who will sweep whatever they want under the rug. Here's the thing, though. The FBI is already a mostly Republican institution anyway. Since its official establishment in 1935, all 8 directors of the Federal Bureau of Investigation have either been Republicans or, in the case of J. Edgar Hoover, a registered independent who was staunchly conservative. That's it. Any claim that the FBI has ever been, or is presently, an institution that is biased against the Republican Party is historically inaccurate and outright laughable. In other words, if the Republicans want the FBI to be a more conservative institution than it already is, then they want the FBI to be a far-right organization and loyal only to the Republican Party. They don't want to defund the FBI. They want to make it worse. I don't like the FBI either, but my objections to the FBI are rooted in my objections to state power in general and the FBI's specific history of spying on leftist movements, not some pretense about the innocence of a fascist demagogue. Trump is probably guilty of some crimes, and I shed no tears for him even if his current enemy is the FBI, because his greater enemy is us, the people. Condemning Trump's crimes is not deference to federal law enforcement or the Department of Justice. It's just, the only way to legally hold him accountable right now. And that's what the Defund the FBI movement is all about. It's not about opposition to federal law enforcement, it's not about the Defund the Police movement of 2020, and it's not about protecting ordinary Americans from witch hunts. It's about Republicans protecting the powerful from the consequences of their actions, ensuring Republican victory in the 2024 general election, delegitimizing the opposing political party, and establishing even greater power for the right wing in the United States. Hi everybody. If you like what I do, make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. Also, check out my Patreon link. See you soon.